Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Podcast, where improving your English can be simple, enjoyable, and part of your everyday life.
Hi, Alex, and hello to everyone listening today.
I'm really excited to be here because we have another relaxed and interesting conversation prepared for you.
Absolutely. And today we're doing something a little different from our usual lessons.
That's right, because instead of focusing mainly on grammar rules or memorizing long vocabulary lists, we're going to have a conversation that feels much more like real life.
Exactly. Because when you listen to native speakers, they usually aren't discussing complicated subjects all day.
Most everyday conversations are actually about simple things like work, shopping plans, family, food, or what happened during the weekend.
And that's why listening to natural conversations can be such a useful way to develop your English listening and speaking skills.
So, Mia, let's start with something simple. How was your evening yesterday?
Well, Alex, it turned into a little adventure because when I got home from work, I opened my refrigerator and realized I didn't have enough food to make dinner.
Oh no, that sounds like the perfect reason for an unexpected trip to the supermarket.
Exactly. So instead of relaxing after work, I grabbed my shopping bag, put on my jacket, and headed to the grocery store.
Going grocery shopping right after work can be difficult because that's usually when the stores are very busy.
You're absolutely right. Because when I arrived, the parking lot was almost completely full.
That's frustrating, especially when you've already had a long day and just want to get home.
It really was. And I spent almost 10 minutes driving around before I finally found an empty parking space.
I know that feeling, because by the time you find a spot, you've already used up half of your patience.
Exactly. But I finally parked, grabbed a shopping cart, and walked into the store.
So, what was the first thing on your shopping list?
I went straight to the produce section because I wanted to buy some vegetables for dinner.
That sounds healthy and simple. Did you have a long shopping list?
Not really. I only needed some vegetables, chicken, bread, milk, fruit, and a few things for breakfast.
That doesn't sound too bad.
No, but I knew I had to be careful because I had a habit of buying more things than I actually needed.
I think a lot of people can relate to that, especially when everything looks interesting.
Exactly. I started with the vegetables and then went to the meat section.
Did you find everything you needed?
Almost. The chicken I wanted was sold out, so I decided to try some fresh fish instead.
That sounds like a good choice.
It was, so I picked up some bread, milk, and fruit.
So, everything was going smoothly.
Yes, but suddenly I noticed the lights flickering.
So, what happened next?
Suddenly, all the lights in the supermarket went out.
Wait, seriously? The entire store lost power?
Yes, the whole place went dark for a few seconds, and everyone became completely silent.
Wow, I can imagine that must have been surprising.
It really was. And then I heard people around me asking what was happening.
Did the emergency lights come on?
Yes, a few seconds later, some emergency lights turned on, but the store was still much darker than usual.
I bet that made grocery shopping a lot more interesting.
Definitely, because nobody knew whether the power would come back immediately or if we would have to leave the store.
That sounds like a pretty stressful situation for the employees.
It probably was, but they handled it surprisingly well and kept telling everyone not to worry.
Were you able to finish your shopping?
Not exactly, because I still had several things on my list, but I decided to wait for a few minutes and see what happened.
And did the power eventually come back on?
Yes, after about 10 minutes, the lights suddenly came back on, and everyone in the store actually started clapping.
That's funny because you don't normally hear people cheering in a supermarket.
I know, but everyone seemed relieved, and even the employees were smiling.
So, did you continue shopping after that?
I did, although I decided to keep my shopping list short because I was ready to go home.
I don't blame you, because after a long day at work and a surprise power outage, you had probably had enough excitement.
Exactly. But looking back, I actually enjoyed the experience.
Really? Even though it interrupted your shopping?
Yes, because it reminded me that everyday life doesn't always go according to plan, and sometimes those unexpected moments become the stories we remember.
That's a great point. And it's also a perfect example of why everyday conversations are so useful when learning English.
Absolutely, because you don't need a complicated story to practice English. You can talk about something as simple as going to the supermarket.
And when something unexpected happens, you suddenly have even more things to talk about.
Exactly. And that's what makes real conversations interesting and unpredictable.
That's true. And I think those unexpected little moments are what make everyday life interesting.
Absolutely. And speaking of everyday life, let's talk about your weekend, Alex.
My weekend was actually quite full, although it started in a completely different way than I had planned.
Oh, really? What happened?
I woke up early on Saturday morning because I had planned to take a short drive to a nearby town and spend the day exploring.
That sounds like a nice way to start the weekend. So, what went wrong?
As soon as I went outside, I noticed that one of my car tires looked almost completely flat.
Oh no, that's definitely not what you want to discover when you're about to leave for a trip.
Exactly. And at first, I thought I would have to cancel all my plans.
Did you call a mechanic?
I considered it, but before doing that, I decided to check the tire myself.
That sounds brave, because I wouldn't know where to start.
I'm not a car expert either, but I keep a small emergency kit in my trunk, including a portable air pump.
That was lucky, because having the right tools can save you a lot of trouble.
Definitely. So I connected the pump and checked the tire pressure.
And was the tire damaged?
Luckily, it wasn't completely flat, but the pressure was much lower than it should have been.
So, were you able to solve the problem?
For the moment, yes, but I didn't want to take any chances, so I drove to a nearby service station to have the tire checked properly.
That sounds like the smartest thing to do.
The mechanic took a quick look and discovered that there was a tiny nail stuck in the tire.
Oh, wow. So, you really did have a problem.
I did, but thankfully, the damage was small enough to repair instead of replacing the entire tire.
That must have been a huge relief.
It definitely was, although the whole situation delayed my plans by almost 2 hours.
I guess that's one of those moments when you have to remind yourself that not everything goes according to schedule.
Exactly. And instead of getting frustrated, I decided to change my plans and make the most of the day.
I like that attitude.
I ended up driving to a small lakeside town that I had never visited before.
That sounds much more relaxing than dealing with a car problem.
It really was, because the town was quiet, the weather was beautiful, and there were small cafes and local shops along the main street.
Did you explore the town for a while?
Yes, I walked around for a couple of hours and stopped at a little cafe for lunch.
What did you have?
I ordered a simple sandwich and a cup of coffee, and I sat outside because the weather was too nice to stay indoors.
That sounds like a perfect weekend afternoon.
It was. And while I was sitting there, I started talking to the owner of the cafe.
I love when travel gives you the chance to meet people you would never normally meet.
Me too. and we ended up talking about the town, the local area, and some of the best places to visit nearby.
Did he recommend anywhere interesting?
Yes, he told me about a walking trail near the lake that most tourists don't know about.
So, did you decide to check it out?
I did, and honestly, that ended up being the highlight of my entire day.
What was it like?
It was peaceful and quiet, with trees on both sides of the path and a beautiful view of the lake at the end.
That sounds wonderful.
It really was, and for a few hours, I completely forgot about the stressful start to my morning.
That's such a good reminder that sometimes a disappointing situation can lead to something even better.
Exactly, because if my car tire hadn't caused a delay, I probably would never have discovered that place.
Did you stay there until the evening?
I stayed until late afternoon, and then I drove back home before it got dark. After spending the afternoon exploring the town, I decided to meet a close friend for dinner before heading home.
That sounds like a great way to finish the day.
It really was. And instead of going somewhere expensive, we chose a small family-owned restaurant near the town square.
I always enjoy places like that because they usually feel more personal and relaxed.
Exactly. And the restaurant was simple, but the atmosphere was warm, the food was delicious, and the staff were incredibly friendly.
What did you order?
I tried a grilled chicken dish with roasted vegetables, and my friend ordered a bowl of pasta.
That sounds like a pretty good way to end a long day.
It definitely was. But the food wasn't actually the most interesting part of the evening.
Really? Then what did you and your friend talk about?
We started talking about how quickly our lives seem to move, and how easy it is to become overwhelmed by small responsibilities.
I think a lot of people can relate to that because there always seems to be something else that needs to be done.
Exactly. And my friend told me that he had been feeling stressed because he was trying to manage his job, his family responsibilities, and several personal projects at the same time.
That can definitely become exhausting if you never give yourself a chance to slow down.
That's exactly what we talked about. Because sometimes the best thing you can do is stop for a moment, instead of trying to solve everything at once.
I really like that idea because taking a break doesn't mean you're being lazy.
Right. Sometimes taking a short pause actually helps you return to a problem with a clearer mind.
And that connects perfectly with what happened to you earlier that morning.
It does. Because if I had spent the entire day complaining about the tire problem, I would have missed the beautiful town, the walking trail, and the dinner with my friend.
That's such an important lesson because we can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond.
Exactly. And that idea is useful not only in everyday life, but also when you're learning English.
I completely agree because many English learners become frustrated when they make mistakes.
Yes. And sometimes people stop speaking because they're afraid that their grammar won't be perfect.
But real conversations don't work that way because nobody speaks perfectly all the time.
Exactly. People pause, change their sentences, forget words, misunderstand each other, and then simply continue the conversation.
And that's completely normal.
If you make a small mistake while ordering food, asking for directions, or talking to a neighbor, that doesn't mean your English has failed.
It actually means you're using your English in a real situation.
And every real conversation gives you another opportunity to learn something new.
I think that's one of the biggest differences between studying a language and actually using it.
Absolutely. Because a textbook can teach you useful words and grammar, but real conversations teach you how to react naturally.
They also teach you how to listen, how to respond quickly, and how to keep a conversation going, even when you don't know every word.
Exactly. And that's why we always encourage our listeners to practice with real situations whenever possible.
You could start with something very simple, like greeting a coworker, ordering a coffee, asking someone about their day, or talking to a neighbor.
You don't need to have a long or complicated conversation.
Even a 30-second conversation can be valuable practice.
And if you make a mistake, don't stop and criticize yourself.
Take a breath, try again, and keep going.
The goal isn't to sound perfect from the beginning. The goal is to become more comfortable communicating.
Exactly. Because confidence grows through practice, not through waiting until you feel ready.
And our listeners can practice right here with us by writing a few sentences in the comments about something they did this week.
That's a great idea, and it can be something very simple.
You could tell us about a meal you cooked, a place you visited, something funny that happened at work, or even a small problem you had during the week.
The important thing is to use English to talk about your real life.
And if you're enjoying these natural conversations, don't forget to support the podcast by liking this episode and subscribing to English Podcast.
Your support helps us continue creating more conversations that you can listen to, learn from, and enjoy.
And we would really love to hear from you. So leave a comment and tell us what your weekend was like.
You can even try using some of the expressions you heard in today's conversation.
That's a fantastic way to turn listening practice into speaking practice.
Before we finish, I think we should share one final lesson from today's conversation.
I agree, and I would say the lesson is simple. Don't let small problems control your entire day.
Plans can change, unexpected problems can appear, and sometimes things will be more difficult than you expected.
But you can always take a moment, stay calm, and decide what to do next.
And the same thing applies to learning English.
You will forget words, make grammar mistakes, misunderstand people, and sometimes feel like you're not improving fast enough.
But that doesn't mean you should give up.
Every mistake is part of the learning process, and every conversation is another step forward.
So be patient with yourself. Keep practicing, and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Remember that fluency doesn't happen overnight.
It grows slowly, through hundreds of small moments when you listen, speak, learn, and try again.
And if you keep doing that, one day you'll realize that conversations that once felt difficult have become completely natural.
That's the goal. And we hope today's episode helped you feel a little more confident about getting there.
Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us.
We truly appreciate every person who listens, practices, and supports English Podcast.
Keep practicing, keep talking, and most importantly, enjoy the process.
Have a wonderful week, everyone, and take care of yourselves.
We'll be back with another natural English conversation very soon.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
See you in the next episode.
Goodbye.